supplements that will protect your cardiovascular health? Well, I believe you already know that the leading cause of death in the world is cardiovascular diseases. Just so you have an idea, per year, just in Brazil, okay? This is a worldwide problem. But just in Brazil, more than 500,000 people die every year due to cardiovascular diseases. And this is a very serious issue, of course. There are several reasons why this happens. Our lifestyle is getting worse and worse. People are eating very poorly. People are not exercising. People are living a very stressful life. And all of this contributes to increased blood pressure, arrhythmia problems, and heart failure issues. And this leads to this sad statistic. So just imagine, in Brazil alone, every year, more than 500,000 people pass away. And many of these people pass away due to cardiovascular issues, whether it's a heart attack or a stroke. All right, my friends, I'm doing this live stream because people ask me to. People have been asking these supplements that I'm going to show you here today, which are specifically for cardiovascular protection. You know that our diet, unfortunately, is getting worse and more deficient in a number of nutrients. And this ends up worsening cardiovascular problems, increasing inflammation, and increasing the formation of atheroma. And it brings all the problems that over the years will culminate in cardiovascular issues. And there are some precautions we can take, right? Improving our diet, exercising, but also using smart supplementation to reduce inflammation and protect our cardiovascular system. And today's live stream is exactly about that. All right, my friends? So let's talk about that. I brought 5 main ones. Okay, my friends? There are others. There are many other important supplements for cardiovascular health. But I wanted to bring you the top 5 because it's that old story, right? We can't do everything at once. We can't do it all. So I decided to bring the top 5, the 5 most essential, those 5 supplements that will make the biggest difference in your cardiovascular health. And I want to start here with one that you probably don't know about. Did you know that coenzyme Q10, let me see. I brought it here to show you. Did you know that coenzyme Q10 is essential for cardiovascular health? And one more thing, after the age of 40, we tend to have a deficiency in coenzyme production. What happens? We naturally produce coenzyme in our bodies, but after the age of 40, this production decreases. And coenzyme is essential for energy production. But it's also an extremely important substance as an electron acceptor, fighting free radicals. Since it pulls electrons, it ends up sweeping away those free radicals. And it's exactly this characteristic of electron transport that generates energy. This happens in our mitochondria. Mitochondria are the batteries of our cells. All our cells have mitochondria. And to promote energy generation, coenzyme Q10 is necessary. And as we age, between 35 and 40 years old, production starts to decline. It's normal to observe a decrease in energy in people as they get older. The person gets more tired, doesn't want to go out, feels low on energy, starts having some body aches and memory lapses. Where are there more mitochondria? First, in the brain. Second, in the heart. In heart failure, the heart doesn't have the strength to beat, and one of the causes is a deficiency in the production of coenzyme Q10. And if you use statins, those medications to lower cholesterol, that's one more reason for you to pay attention to your coenzyme Q10 levels. Why, my friends? Statins inhibit an enzyme known as 3-hydroxy-3-methylglutaryl coenzyme A reductase. This enzyme blocks the mevalonate pathway, which produces cholesterol, but also produces coenzyme Q10. So, you need to be very careful, especially if you're over 40 years old, and especially if you take statins to lower your cholesterol. So basically, the first supplement I want to bring to you here is coenzyme Q10 to improve energy and work as an electron scavenger. Atheroma, which is the progressive blockage of our coronary arteries that can lead to a heart attack in the future, is caused by an inflammatory process and the attack of free radicals. Since coenzyme Q10 scavenges these radicals, it helps with this protection. That's why it's very important to maintain good levels of coenzyme Q10 to improve energy and fight free radicals. Another detail, coenzyme Q10 also has studies showing that it improves cholesterol profile because it makes it harder for the small, dense particle, which is the really bad cholesterol, to oxidize. So the first supplement is exactly coenzyme Q10. Pay close attention to coenzyme Q10, my friends. Pay close attention. It has low absorption. Coenzyme Q10 is absorbed very little. You need a dose of at least 100 milligrams for prevention. Those who take statins need higher doses, but at least 100 milligrams. And it's interesting to supplement coenzyme together with taurine. The one I use here comes with taurine. Why, Moacir? Because taurine has a positive synergy in the mitochondria together with the coenzyme. It's as if taurine and the coenzyme enhance each other's action in energy production. Many people who start using coenzyme together with taurine notice this effect after a few weeks. The person starts to feel more willing, with more energy. Many people who used to have memory lapses no longer have them. More energy for the brain, improved reasoning, and the heart starts beating stronger. There are studies that show that using coenzyme in higher doses can help reverse cases of heart failure. If you have heart failure, it's a good idea to talk to your doctor about supplementing with higher doses of coenzyme Q10. These doses can range from 300, 400, 500, or even 600 milligrams, but this should be done under medical supervision. But it's an essential supplement. I would say it's mandatory, especially if you're over 40, to improve energy production and to perform this antioxidant function. Now I'm going to talk about cholesterol. Look, my friends, coenzyme number 1, I'll put it back here. Now I'm going to take a supplement that you probably know and probably use. If you don't use it, you should be using it, which is omega-3. And our diet, unfortunately, is very poor in omega-3 and very rich in omega-6. What's the problem with that? Omega-6 is a pro-inflammatory oil. It takes part in the arachidonic acid cascade. Inflammation is important, of course. If you cut your finger, an inflammatory process occurs to generate healing, and that's essential for life. The problem is subclinical inflammation, the kind that isn't acute, isn't caused by an injury, but is present in the body. It happens because you eat poorly, live stressed, and end up inflamed without realizing it, since there are no clear symptoms. There's no pain, no fever, no symptoms at all, and that's when it's dangerous because you think everything is fine. But it's this inflammation that's behind most chronic degenerative diseases like heart attacks, the formation of atheroma, and strokes. Cancer also has an inflammatory background. Autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's can get worse. All of this gets worse. Arthritis, arthrosis, and even diabetes itself has an inflammatory background. That's why it's essential to control this inflammation. And what happens today? Omega-6 is pro-inflammatory and accelerates inflammation. This is good in acute processes, but in the long run, it's bad. That's why you need to balance omega-6 with omega-3. The ideal ratio is 1:1, but at least 3 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. Today, the standard Western diet reaches a ratio of 14:1, meaning 14 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. We are therefore deficient in omega-3. This happens because we eat a lot of processed foods and fewer natural products. And even animal-based foods like eggs, chicken meat, beef, and even fish have less and less omega-3 because farm animals are fed with feed, which reduces this nutrient. Even the fish we eat, like tilapia or farmed salmon, aren't wild and are also fed with feed, which lowers their omega-3 content. In other words, it produces less omega-3, and produces less astaxanthin. That orange color you see in salmon at the supermarket is artificial, okay? Farmed salmon has grayer meat, so it gets a dye to have that color, astaxanthin. So, even people who eat well can't reach the omega-3 levels, for example, that people could get 40 or 50 years ago. So, it's necessary to supplement omega-3 in capsule form. This here is fish oil, okay, my friends? They take wild fish from deep waters and extract the oil. They purify it, obviously, and package it in capsule form. And omega-3 needs to be in this ratio. 3 parts, 6 to 1 part, omega-3. 3 parts, omega-6 to 1 part, omega-3. I almost got confused here. But then, Moacir, what about the doses? That's where the trick comes in, okay? For cardiovascular protection, the most recommended omega is eicosapentaenoic acid. Eicosapentaenoic acid is eicosapentaenoic acid, and it's the one that has anti-inflammatory properties. It helps control triglycerides, which are a major cardiovascular risk factor. It helps improve the levels of really good cholesterol. It reduces inflammation. So that's eicosapentaenoic acid, eicosapentaenoic acid. Docosahexaenoic acid, which is docosahexaenoic acid, is very important for the brain. So if you want to sleep better, improve reasoning, improve memory, then it's docosahexaenoic acid. You need to pay attention because there are omegas on the market with more eicosapentaenoic acid and omegas with more docosahexaenoic acid. This one has more eicosapentaenoic acid for cardiovascular health. Dosage: at least 1,000 milligrams of eicosapentaenoic acid per dose. Here, in this case, it's 2 capsules, at least 1,000 milligrams. At least 1,000, because you'll see cheaper omegas on the market that have 300 milligrams per dose, right? In other words, 3 times less. It's cheaper, but in return, it's 3 times less omega-3. So you need to pay very close attention to the label. Pay very close attention to the label. The most counterfeited supplement, and the one with the most junk in it here in Brazil, unfortunately, is omega-3. 90% of the omega supplements sold in Brazil are of very poor quality, or even worse, are counterfeit. And you also need to pay attention to this little seal here. I'll get closer here so you can see. It's because I'm here on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I don't know why I'm showing it, but I'll show it to Instagram, I'll show it to YouTube, I'll show it to TikTok. See? MEG3. MEG3 seal. International Fish Oil Standards, seal 2. They're seals that guarantee the origin, that this omega came from a good source. They guarantee the purity of the omega and also the absence of heavy metals. Because unfortunately, there is a lot of heavy metal contamination in fish. Unfortunately, we've managed to pollute even the seas. So the MEG3 seal and the International Fish Oil Standards seal guarantee the absence of heavy metals. Because the environment is very contaminated, mainly with mercury and also with lead. Cadmium, these toxic metals. Aluminum too, which is not a heavy metal, but it is a toxic metal. So this seal guarantees this purity. So always prefer ultra-concentrated omegas, always with a seal and with at least 1,000 milligrams of eicosapentaenoic acid. That way, you'll be buying a quality omega-3, all right? So my second supplement for cardiovascular health, you probably already guessed, it's omega-3. You probably already use it, and I recommend that everyone use it. Unfortunately, our diet is very poor in omega-3. Then comes the classic, magnesium couldn't be left out, right? Magnesium, my friends, is another supplement that our diet, unfortunately, is very poor in, especially here in Brazil. Here in Brazil, our water is low in magnesium, and as a result, so are our foods. Magnesium affects the cardiovascular system in multiple ways and is involved in over 300 bodily reactions. Here, I'll focus only on its role in the cardiovascular system. It relaxes the blood vessels, promoting a reduction in blood pressure. Magnesium is a natural antiarrhythmic because it controls the entry and exit of calcium ions and potassium ions. It helps with regulation of the electrical system of our heart. Yes, our heart has an electrical system. It beats through electrical pulses. And this regulation of calcium ions and potassium ions is done through magnesium. So if you have low levels of magnesium, this electrical pulse starts to get out of control, and then comes arrhythmia. And there are a lot of people who have arrhythmia due to magnesium deficiency. In fact, many cases of sudden death are often due to magnesium deficiency. So it's a mineral that you need to pay close attention to. You need to have good magnesium levels. To lower blood pressure, magnesium helps by preventing the oxidation of the small, dense cholesterol particle, which forms the atheroma. It reduces inflammatory markers, the inflammatory cytokines. Magnesium helps control these cytokines. Remember what I said? That inflammation is behind most chronic and degenerative diseases. That's right. Magnesium works by reducing these markers and these inflammatory cytokines. Can someone who has had a heart attack take omega-3 with coenzyme Q10? If you've had a heart attack, you should take coenzyme Q10 and omega-3. It's not about if you can. You have to take it, okay? You already are a high-risk patient, right? So, my friends, magnesium has all these functions and also acts in energy production, in the formation of adenosine triphosphate and in the regeneration of adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate needs magnesium to work, and magnesium also acts in the brain. Oh, I almost forgot. It also acts in the decalcification of our arteries. Over time, our arteries start accumulating calcium, become stiffer, and lose elasticity. When these arteries lose their elasticity, what happens? The chance of rupture is higher. And then two supplements are important, right? Magnesium, because it helps fix that calcium in the bone where it belongs and not in the arteries. And vitamin K2, it's like a taxi. It picks up the calcium that's in the artery and says, hey, your place isn't here. Your place is over there in the bone. It acts on gamma carboxyglutamic acid. It acts on osteocalcin, promoting the fixation of calcium in the bones. Magnesium and vitamin K2 are essential to reduce this calcification of the arteries, both at first and later on, including in the prevention of osteoporosis. Because when you fix this calcium in the bones, you strengthen the bones and help prevent osteoporosis. Types of magnesium. Someone asked a very relevant question here. There are many types of magnesium. You have, for example, magnesium oxide, magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride, magnesium stearate, magnesium taurate, magnesium malate, magnesium citrate, and magnesium glycinate. There are many types of magnesium. The best ones are the magnesium types bound to biological molecules, which are the so-called chelates, the chelated forms of magnesium. Let's start with the bad types of magnesium. Mainly the ones found in multivitamins: magnesium stearate, magnesium oxide, magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride itself also has low absorption. They're cheaper, but they have low absorption. Magnesiums with good absorption: magnesium citrate, magnesium malate, magnesium taurate, magnesium bisglycinate, and magnesium threonate. Which one is the most interesting, Moacir, out of all of these? Well, it really depends on the goal you want to achieve. If you want to improve brain function, because magnesium helps with sleep, acts as a gamma-aminobutyric acid inducer, gamma-aminobutyric acid, promoting relaxation. It improves neuronal flow through synaptic connections, enhances reasoning and memory. So for these cases, I really like taurate. Magnesium taurate for the heart. For the heart, I really like bisglycinate and dimalate because dimalate is bound to malic acid, which increases energy production. It's also very interesting for people with fibromyalgia. Bisglycinate is interesting for fibromyalgia and also for calcium fixation in the bones. For immunity, magnesium is essential. So what's interesting is for you to use a blend, a mixture. See this one here, for example, that I use here. It has magnesium taurate. It's a mixture. There are 3 types of magnesium: taurate, bisglycinate, and dimalate. Bisglycinate and dimalate. So it's dimalate, bisglycinate, and taurate. So that's what I use here. Oh, important detail. Pay attention to the label. At least 350 milligrams of elemental magnesium. This is very important, my friends. Elemental magnesium. What is elemental magnesium? You will see some brands there. It says 2,000 milligrams of magnesium threonate. There are 2,000 milligrams of magnesium threonate, but these 2,000 milligrams have only 200 milligrams of elemental magnesium. For example, this one has nearly twice as much. So you need to look at the amount of elemental magnesium, of pure magnesium, because the taurine molecule that forms magnesium taurate, the glycine molecule that forms bisglycinate, and the malic acid molecule that forms dimagnesium malate are large molecules. They take up a lot of space in the capsule, leaving little room for magnesium. So you need to calculate how much elemental magnesium is inside the capsule. So you'll see on the label it says elemental magnesium. Here it is, 350 milligrams. That's the ideal. You'll often find products with 2,000 milligrams of magnesium malate. It will be saved on YouTube. Andressa, people are asking if the live will be saved. It will be saved on the YouTube channel, my friends. So it's very important for you to use a good type of magnesium, bound to biological molecules, and that has at least 350 milligrams of elemental magnesium. So you can get all the benefits from the more than 300 reactions that magnesium provides. Isn't that right? Very well. So we talked about Coenzyme Q10. We're talking about the 5 supplements, and here we're focusing on cardiovascular health. So we talked about Coenzyme Q10, preferably used together with taurine. We talked about omega-3, preferably icosapentaenoic acid, preferably 1,000 milligrams of icosapentaenoic acid at least, preferably with the International Fish Oil Standard seal or the omega-3 seal. Then we'll talk about magnesium. Now I want to bring to you the B complex. Especially if you are not having a proper diet, if you are vegan or vegetarian, which means you have a low intake of B complex vitamins. If you eat well, really well, you might have good levels of B complex vitamins, but that's not the case for most people. Even I, who am very careful with my diet during the week, especially until Saturday, on Sunday, we take it easy, go to a party, do what we like, because otherwise life loses its charm too, right, my friends? Even I, who have a very disciplined and balanced diet, I take B complex supplements. And do you know why? Because I'm already over 40 years old. Actually, I'm already over 50. And as we get older, our absorption decreases. Our intestines start to absorb less. We absorb fewer amino acids, fewer vitamins. Our bacteria, which produce B complex vitamins, including vitamin B12, are no longer present in such good quantity. We are already more inflamed. So I end up choosing to supplement with B complex. But why, Moacir? B complex, I'm not even going to tell the brain, I'm just going to tell the heart. energy generation, metabolism, using fat as a source of energy. Control of energy regulation. The B complex is involved in all of this, especially if you like a little beer, if you overdo it with alcohol. Here in Minas Gerais, the weekend starts on Thursday. People start drinking on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The week has 7 days, and a lot of people drink on 4 of them, more than half the week. So if you abuse alcohol, or if you drink every day, or if your weekend starts early, this one has quercetin. Good question. I'll talk a little about quercetin. This B complex has quercetin, and I'll explain its function. One more reason. Those who abuse alcohol need to supplement B1, B3, and B6. B3 because of nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. B6. They are the 3 main ones, B1, B3, and B6. And B12 as well for energy production is essential. The quercetin present in this formulation is a substance that works as an antioxidant. It helps the immune system. Quercetin is very interesting and acts as an antioxidant and immunomodulator. There are 2 natural substances that I really like, quercetin and berberine. For those who have cholesterol and glucose problems, quercetin and berberine are essential. And pay attention to the doses of B complex, my friends. Most B complexes on the market have only 6 vitamins. This one has 12 or 13 if I'm not mistaken, because choline is also a B complex and inositol is also a B complex. Pantothenic acid is also a B complex. All of this is part of the B complex. The cheapest ones only put B1, B2, B3, B6, and B12. And they usually use B12 in the form of canocobalamin, which is cheaper. You need a B complex with methylcobalamin, which is the methyl form with better absorption, and that provides a methyl donor. This is very important. Many negative expressions of our DNA happen due to lack of methylation. Now, a very important point, homocysteine. Homocysteine above 8, huh? It increases your risk of cardiovascular problems. High homocysteine is more dangerous than high cholesterol, much more dangerous, and very few people give it the proper importance. And what makes homocysteine go up? Lack of methyl donors, meaning methylcobalamin and methylfolate. We also have it here, okay? Methylfolate. And pyridoxal 5-phosphate, which is an active form of pyridoxine. And this helps with the reduction of our homocysteine. So pay close attention to your homocysteine the next time you get tested. Stay alert. That range that says it's normal, be careful, okay? There's nothing normal about it. So answering to Andre here, look, methylcobalamin is the same thing as vitamin B12, but there's also cyanocobalamin, which is also vitamin B12, but in the cyano form, which doesn't have such good absorption and isn't as active as methylcobalamin. Methylcobalamin is by far better. That's it. B6, B9, B12, the methylation trio, as long as it's in the methyl form, okay? There's also no point in using folic acid, right? It will provide you with folate, but it won't give you a methyl donor. So it can't be folic acid, it has to be methylfolate. It can't be regular B12, it has to be methylcobalamin. This is very important for controlling homocysteine as a methyl donor. Few doctors pay attention to this, my friends. This is very important. Well, let's go. So we talked about coenzyme, we talked about magnesium, we talked about omega, and we talked about the B complex, right? I'm giving a general overview here. I want to say, I forgot to bring it, my friends. Look, I ended up forgetting about trans-resveratrol, okay? What is trans-resveratrol, Moacir? It's a substance that's present in wine, right? They say that a glass of wine a day helps with cardiovascular health. Is that true? Look, my friends, I would like to say that it is, okay, because I love wine. I really do. I really like a good wine. I don't drink it that often because it's rich in trans-resveratrol. Resveratrol is an antioxidant substance that's present in the skin of the grape and in the grape seed itself. This substance is extraordinary. It's an antioxidant, it's anti-inflammatory, and it protects the inside of our blood vessels. Fights inflammation and free radical damage. So it's a substance that, if you want to have a long-lasting cardiovascular system, you need to use it. Resveratrol in the form of trans-resveratrol, okay? Because there's a lot of resveratrol out there that's junk. What about wine, Moacir? It contains trans-resveratrol, so why not? Instead of taking capsules, drink wine? Look, for two reasons. First, the therapeutic amount of trans-resveratrol that you need to have these effects. You need to drink a bottle of wine, right? Is it good news? I think so too. I love wine. But when you drink a bottle of wine, you get the harmful effects of alcohol. And alcohol is inflammatory. Alcohol is a demethylator, right? In other words, the benefit you get from the resveratrol in wine ends up being lost due to the harmful effects of alcohol. So no, it's not true that a glass of wine will make you have better cardiovascular health. Because what trans-resveratrol will bring, and everything in the complexity of wine with many nutrients, won't be enough to offset the amount of alcohol. So ideally, you should take this in the form of grapeseed extract or trans-resveratrol itself. Trans-resveratrol itself. So the fifth supplement I want to bring to you here, I actually forgot to bring it, but it's on my supplement list. Okay, my friends? People are asking where to find it. Go to my bio on Instagram. It's on TikTok, in the video description, and also on YouTube. There you'll find my list of supplements. All the ones I mentioned are here, okay? It's pinned there, also on YouTube, for anyone who wants to click there. And trans-resveratrol is there too. Trans-resveratrol is an extraordinary substance. I do it too. I use trans-resveratrol and all the supplements I mentioned. I'm already over 50, my friends. You have to use them. There's no other way. So it will help. It really will help in this cardiovascular matter. And again, it needs to be trans-resveratrol there. Dosage, at least 500 milligrams of trans-resveratrol per day. You can split it between lunch and dinner. This will fight free radicals. It's anti-inflammatory, and it will promote protection of the lumen of your vessels, of the endothelium. The vessel is like a road, right? And the endothelium is like the asphalt. As the blood flows through there, if you have high blood pressure, for example, the blood flows faster because the vessel narrows, so it goes through faster. You end up damaging and causing more holes in that road. And then you need to have it repaired. That's why cholesterol builds up there. The problem isn't even the cholesterol. The problem is the damage. The problem is the inflammation. So you have to control your blood pressure. That's why you need to have a proper diet so you don't increase your inflammation. Inflammation is like if the traffic there was more intense, heavier. Imagine a very heavy truck. That's inflammation. It causes potholes in that road. So it's the pothole in that road that will trigger the repair, and that keeps creating the atheroma, which keeps getting bigger and bigger until it blocks the vessel. If this vessel ruptures, then you have a heart attack, you have a stroke. So it's very important to take care of this road, which is exactly the endothelium. Is taking this supplement enough, Moacir? Will my heart be healthy if I take it? No. It's not just that, right? Of course, I'm going to say it here, but I really shouldn't have to. You really need to have a good diet, less processed food. Let's stop eating junk, guys. Processed food isn't real food. It's junk. It's an edible substance. French fries. This week there was an article about it, and I'll make a video too. It seems that Anvisa considered M&Ms and Doritos, right? Unfit for human consumption, unfit for human consumption. And they sell it at the supermarket. I've been saying this, my friends, since 2017, that it's unfit for human consumption. Now Anvisa has decided to issue a resolution declaring it unfit for human consumption. Just look at that. Since 2017, how many years is that? 8 years, right, that I've been saying this? Now Anvisa has decided. See how government agencies are always behind? They're slow for everything, to recognize what's good and to condemn what's bad. Fortunately, this isn't just in Brazil. It happens worldwide. So, my dear friends, it's very important that you take these supplements, that you make these corrections, right? Because we have low levels of magnesium, low levels of omega-3. You have to supplement. Vitamin D, which I didn't bring here, is also important. Vitamin D helps control blood pressure, not to mention boosting immunity. Coenzyme will help. All right. B complex, okay, but you have to stop bombarding your endothelium with junk. Stop eating edible substances, processed food, stuffing yourself with soda. I know there are a lot of nutritionists, unfortunately, especially on TikTok and here on Instagram, talking about the wonders of diet soda. It's junk, it's inflammatory, it's bad for your health, okay? Don't believe those nutritionists who are saying that you can't just drink diet soda as much as you want. There's no problem with it? Yes, there is. It wrecks your gut, changes your flora, it's inflammatory, it's artificial. So you need to improve your diet and start exercising, okay? Because muscle, my friends, look, muscle is a glandular organ. Muscle isn't just to make you look good, no. It produces peptides that are essential for your health and longevity. With good muscle mass, you're going to live longer, okay? They're still discovering what peptides this tissue produces that prolong life and youth. It's not just for aesthetics. Cardiovascular exercise, right? A treadmill, a bike over there, at least a couple of times a week. So you can keep your cardiovascular system active and flexible. It's to prevent this damage to the endothelium. Good sleep quality and stress management. I usually say that what kills the most is stress. High cortisol levels, right? If you have high cortisol levels, if you have high catecholamine levels, right? Noradrenaline, way up there, cortisol way up there, what happens? Your heart is racing. It's racing. It increases traffic on the endothelium, damaging it and creating a larger hole. Control your blood pressure. If you have high blood pressure, you need to take care of it, my friends. You have to take an antihypertensive, but that's a topic for another live, right? Is it possible to lower blood pressure without using antihypertensives? It actually is. Don't stop taking your antihypertensive if you have high blood pressure. Use magnesium, lose weight, start exercising, your blood pressure will go down. Vitamin D itself, right? Vitamin D also helps control blood pressure. So control your blood pressure and reduce your sugar intake, because diabetes is the factor that ends up glycosylating our arteries, right? Glycation, the excess sugar in the blood, mixes with certain proteins and sticks. It's like caramel. It sticks to the endothelium and starts closing off that endothelium. So you have to stop overusing sugar. You have to eat properly, you have to exercise, and you have to control your stress. Then if you do that, these supplements here are the cherry on top, okay? Omega-3 will reduce your inflammation. Magnesium will relax your blood vessels, right? Coenzyme will increase the energy demand of your heart muscle and will act as an antioxidant. The B complex will act mainly in methylation. It will help methylate your homocysteine, reducing your homocysteine. So that's when supplementation will have an effect. All right, there you go, my friends. All the supplements I mentioned are on my list of supplements. It's in the description of the YouTube video. It's also in my bio, right? In my TikTok bio as well, which is also in my TikTok shop. Check it out later, okay? Go to my TikTok shop and take a look. They're all there. All right, my friends, I want you to comment. Leave your comments down below. about what you want me to talk about in next Saturday's live stream. This live stream will be recorded and available on my YouTube channel. If you missed anything or arrived late, you can find it there. But I wanted you to say in the comments, mainly in the channel's comments, about what you want me to talk about in the next live, okay? Moacir, in the next live, I want you to talk about this, right? Those who have amalgams and can't take B12, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Okay, Nubia? I don't know about that, no. Amalgam, you mean those old ones that used mercury? Yeah, I don't know. Look, people are asking here, melasma, menopause. I always talk about menopause. We can talk about menopause, okay? Keep giving suggestions, guys. Put them on the channel, okay? Because here on TikTok and Instagram, they end up getting deleted. I can't check them here later. Osteoporosis, it's better on the channel, okay? You post it there because on the channel, it stays recorded. Go to the channel and write, hey, talk about this, talk about that topic. Menopause, low ferritin, people are giving suggestions here. Low ferritin, melasma, menopause. We can talk about all of that, okay? Fatty plaques. I talked a little about that, right? These fatty plaques, my friends, that's inflammation. That's inflammation. It has more to do with the quality of the food you're eating, whether it's inflammatory or not. That's why I brought up the example of sodas, even diet sodas, right? It's important for you to cut back on inflammatory products, alcohol, soda, junk food, processed food, because that causes an inflammatory process, and that plaque buildup comes from the inflammatory process. We briefly discussed this topic in this video. All right, my friends. Well, leave your tips over on my channel, okay? I'll curate them and then decide what the topic will be for next Saturday. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful for you, okay? Don't forget to like and share. Go to the channel later and share it. Share this live in your groups, okay? I hope you enjoyed it. A big hug. Subscribe to the channel. Not subscribe to the channel, subscribe. Not following on Instagram, follow. Not following on TikTok, follow, okay? I hope you enjoyed it, my friends. A big hug to you all and see you in our next conversation, okay? See you then.